Monday Night Raw, Episode 1, January 11th, 1993, from Manhattan, New York at the Manhattan Center. So, the opening sequence has Bobby Heenan and Shawn Mooney. And here we have Bobby Heenan trying to get in and looking for ways to get in. But little does he know that he's been replaced by Rob Bartlett, who's on the commentary table. And basically, the whole intro is having to get in, trying to get in, even though the first episode of Monday Night Raw is jam packed, sold out. You can't get in. What's funny is then it goes right into the opening title sequence with the song, and at the end when it goes, it reminded me of the Botchamania video at the end where he put the Terry Funk forever, forever. So we start with McMahon, Savage, and Ron Bartlett at ringside. There's a funny point where Macho Man goes to shake Ron Bartlett's hand and psychs him out. So now Rob feels upset and sad the entire night, which is hilarious. Vince hypes the interview by saying that the Steiner brothers are in action, and we have an interview with Razor Ramon tonight as well. We do wind up getting a Rob Bartlett plug for the match between Yokozuna and Koko Beware, but he calls him Yokozuma with an M. And he mentions that Yoko is wearing a diaper, so something to keep in mind. We end it with Rob Bartlett trying to do a Macho Man promo, which I thought was funny. He was just saying the "ooh yeahs," so that seemed pretty interesting. Then we get into our match: Yokozuna versus Koko Beware. Koko comes out of the ring without Frankie and with Owen Hart's theme song. I didn't know that they're a tag team at this point. But I remember seeing Owen and Koko wearing those outfits that they wore. But at the time, I thought it was Owen Hart's theme song. That's what I'm used to seeing. So as Yokozuna comes to the ring, we're reminded by Vince that Yoko's undefeated in the WWF. So let's see how that goes. There's a moment after Yoko is disrobing where Rob Bartlett sees him and is sort of disgusted and gives a sort of disgusted, "Oh my God," when he that comes out of his mouth when he disrobes. It comes out clear as day. Most of this match is a squash, just to put Yokozuna over. Sure, Koko gets a handful, if that, of offensive moves, but it seemed offensive to Yokozuna, if anything, that he would even try. A whip to the turnbuckle, a full head of steam, and Yoko crashes into Koko. It's interesting having to say Yoko and Koko. I don't know if they took the time to realize that. So Yoko sets up for the bonsai drop. And for a moment, you see how far down the middle ropes bend as Yokozuna goes onto the ropes to set up for the bonsai drop. The match is eventually over, Yokozuna wins, and his undefeated streak continues in the WWF. So clearly he's being put over. Some of the things that I wanted to note for this match is Yokozuna has an undefeated streak and hasn't lost. They mentioned that Yoko weighs 505 pounds. Uh, there's a certain point in the match where Vince makes a reference that Yokozuna potentially ate Frankie the Bird and called him a light snack. Yokozuna and Macho Man are participating in the Rumble. That's something that the announcers say. Uh, I find out Owen and Koko are in a tag team called High Energy. Owen was injured by Razor Ramon, so let's see if that winds up paying off where they ask him, or if they show it. Razor's the number one contender for WWF title against Bret Hart, and the Royal Rumble takes place January 24th in Sacramento, California. Now, some quotes from Rob Bartlett during the match between Yokozuna and Koko Beware. Uh, when Koko comes out, there's a point where Rob asks, "I wonder whatever happened to Gary Coleman." Uh, he also says that Yokozuna hasn't seen his feet in quite some time. He says Yokozuna is one big butt Oriental. He's got an ass like an amphitheater. Yokozuna should be wearing a bra. Is that a butt drop when Yokozuna does the leg drop, which I thought was hilarious? Apparently, there is no word in Japanese for the word leftover. This is what Rob said. And record players just skipped in Guam when Yoko does the bonsai drop. So, uh, interesting stuff. Interesting stuff. We go into a commercial to hype up the Royal Rumble in 1993. Uh, there we're told that Bret Hart is going to face Razor for the title. So they've already plugged this and they've already set it, and they're trying to get basically the main event for the Rumble. So we cut next and we see a woman in the ring with a Baywatch type suit, but I think it's black, and she's holding a sign that says Monday Night Raw. It reminded me of the women who would hold the signs in boxing matches. There's a certain point where Macho Man says that he has X-ray vision, so I'm guessing that he says that about the lady. And then we cut into a pre-taped Bobby Heenan promo, which I thought was pretty interesting because he's outside. He can't get in, but he had time to make the promo, which was pretty funny. Now this one's interesting, right? Because for many reasons, I find out that Heenan and Mr. Perfect are no longer together. So he cuts a promo on Heenan, pardon me, cuts a promo putting down Mr. Perfect. So they've broken up officially. Heenan really puts over Lex Luger as the narcissist. And the way he spoke made it seem like he was trying to get the viewer to have the word narcissist and the narcissist name burn into our skulls. He mentions that Lex is anatomically perfect, physically and mentally superior, and even that Michelangelo could not capture the qualities of the narcissist. Uh, what's funny is we hear the word narcissist said by Bobby Heenan 7 times in this promo, but it definitely felt like more. Not sure if he's debuted yet though, or not. I think he has. Uh, I don't know if he's been on TV yet, and I don't know when Lex slams him on the Intrepid. But we'll see. You'll know we'll see him when those mirrors come out and he's posing in front of them. After that, we get into another match, the Steiner brothers versus the Beverly brothers. What's interesting to note is Doink the Clown is very much noticeable in the background, and he's in the stands with the people while the match is happening. He winds up coming down in the front row, and the camera gets him, blowing one of these little party things that unroll and makes a noise. There really isn't much into this match. It's a basic squash match. When I checked to see who the Beverly brothers were, I found out that they're Mike Enos and Wayne Bloom. They used to be enhancement talent and would not be in the company by the end of 1993. So uh, let's see how far along we get with them, if we do, because I'm doing these and researching as I kind of go instead of just doing a bit of research beforehand. So we cut to another outside segment, and Bobby Heenan is still trying to get in. So his second attempt to now get in. And here he's dressed like a woman, and he says he's Rob Bartlett's aunt. He has a wig, he's got the whole garb on, and they eventually take off the gimmick, and it's Bobby Heenan. Surprise. And then we go into the interview, the Razor Ramon interview that they hyped up from the beginning. Razor comes to the ring, and Vince lets us know that he's headed to the Royal Rumble, and it's his golden opportunity. What's interesting is he's also wearing a gold chain as well. Gold chains, actually. Razor pays off the gold reference by saying he is gold and has gold that says Razor all over it. So it's written on him and it's written for him basically. What I like is the little small payoff that they did and using the interviewer and what the interviewer gave you and plugging in what his character is, what Razor Ramon is. So it's for him, it would be sort of natural that gold is around him, which is I guess why he's the number one contender for the WWF Championship. What's interesting to note is Razor says he did in 8.5 months what it took Brett 8.5 years to do, and that's contend for the WWF title. Because they mentioned in the beginning of this interview that uh, Brett's been in the company, I think, for 8.5 years now. So this is 93, and he's just now getting his shot. He's getting put over. So Vince mentions that he's been there for 8 years. Uh, this is what I like the most when they show a clip of Razor attacking Owen. It looks like Razor when he goes. It's a clip from WWF Mania, and Razor goes and he kind of like ducks his clothesline in and then attacks him as if he kind of lunged like a cat, which I thought was interesting because Owen was sitting down doing an interview. The segment ends with, after we get back from the clip, the segment ends with Brett saying that he can't do anything about him getting the title and throws the toothpick at Vince, who then calls him a bad guy. A bad guy. I don't know if he's going by the bad guy yet, but we'll see if that sticks and how that sticks if it hasn't stuck already with him being known as the bad guy. What we go into next, which is something I never have even heard of from the WWF, and they have this relief fund called a Headlock for Hunger, Somalia Relief Fund, and that promo follows into a Tatanka promo to hype up the Headlock for Hunger Relief Fund. I wonder what they thought by putting Tatanka, who's a Native American, in a promo, in this type of promo, to hype this relief fund up and why. If they felt that getting a talent who potentially comes from an oppressed background, especially in the United States within the last 200-300 years, uh, what did that mean to them to get Tatanka, a person of an oppressed people, to help push the Somalia Relief Fund? I also don't know what was going on in Somalia. Next, we probably have one of the best matches, the best match of the night, because it was really the only match of the night where there was some sort of offense between the opponents, and that's Max Moon versus Shawn Michaels for the IC title. It's really the match of the night between these two. They are putting over that the Intercontinental title is the workhorse match because both Max Moon and Shawn get offensive maneuvers, and I mean, we know Shawn's going to win, and Shawn does wind up winning, but there's effort put in by both of the wrestlers, which I thought was pretty interesting. Here's a few things to note about the match. Shawn comes out with the blue IC title. Uh, it does go into a commercial break, so we get one commercial break and they come in. Uh, they keep referencing the tagline "uncut, uncensored, uncooked" for Monday Night Raw, and they mention it twice on this during this segment. They also mention President Jack Tunney, so this will be the first time I get to kind of see Jack Tunney. Also, Doink comes out during the match, but now instead of being in the stands, he's at ringside. Also, something to note is towards the beginning point of the match, Rob Bartlett does a Mike Tyson impression, and they kind of riff about Mike Tyson. I don't know what was going on at the time, but they on commentary they mentioned something to do with jail time or something like that. So I'm not sure what exactly happened, but Bartlett is in Mike Tyson character for most of this match, and he has witty exchange with both Vince and Macho Man for the rest of the match. So that's something to keep in mind. Here's something that completely blew my mind. Well, first off, Vince calls the super kick the salon kick. I don't know if that's any reference to the barbershop uh, thing that he had with Marty, but he calls it the salon kick. And Shawn doesn't win with it because he sets up for like a suplex where he puts Max Moon's hands underneath his base and he does a suplex. And that's how he wins the match. Completely blew my mind. Next, we get into a commercial for WWF Mania, which I had never heard of until this when I started watching this. And that's on Saturday mornings with the phrase, it's 100% caffeine free. So I guess they're trying to put this over because it has wrestling, which is probably just pre-taped stuff, as well as interviews, which is, I mean, also pre-taped, I assume. Uh, so it's kind of, it's a show in the morning. So I want to see how long that lasts. And that leads us into a match graphic to hype up the Undertaker versus Damian Demento, which I have no idea who Damian Demento is. As we go to a commercial break, it comes back and we go into the Royal Rumble report. And this one actually has some time where Gene Okerlund kind of talks a little bit about the Royal Rumble and what's happening. It's 2 weeks away at this point, so it's doing something to hype up. We first get an HBK Marty Jannetty advertisement for the Intercontinental title, and questions arise as to which corner Sensational Sherry will be, which goes right into a promo from Shawn and Marty Jannetty, one right after the other. So Shawn gets a promo, and he basically puts a sort of his character promo where he talks about um, if it's a woman on his side, it's always she's always going to be on his side. So he's in his character, and he's very vain, you know. And Marty cuts like a old school style wrestling promo. Uh, Gene runs uh, Gene runs down the Royal Rumble rules and tells us more participants that are coming in. Ric Flair, Tatanka, who I find out is undefeated apparently, IRS, who's tag team champion at the time. Bob Backlund is in the Rumble, Jerry Lawler, and Mr. Perfect, who gets his own promo. I guess to get the payoff of the promo that, or at least like his retort for what Bobby Heenan had said. He says the word perfect 4 or 5 times in this promo, so something to keep in mind. And he kind of just talks about how he's perfect, which he is. He's Mr. Perfect. Gene continues with Ted DiBiase in the Rumble, Crush, Rick Martel, and Yokozuna, who also gets a promo. And he says the word Yosh 4 times. Yosh! As the camera zooms in on him as well. So we have two undefeated guys, Tatanka and Yokozuna, who are going into the Rumble. Something to note. Gene continues with Macho Man, Papa Shango, Earthquake, the Berserker, the Undertaker, and Carlos Colon. Also from Japan, the Great Tenru, which was pretty interesting. Uh, so we have cross promotion somehow. I'll check to see where Tenru was at this time. El Matador, Tito Santana, Typhoon, Samu, and Fatu, eventually Rikishi, and Jim Duggan, who gets his own promo. I think he was the winner of the first unofficial Rumble, but he cuts basically an American promo, and that's pretty much about it. Gene says that the winner goes on to WrestleMania 9 at Caesar's Palace, and finally he tells us about Bret Hart versus Razor Ramon for the WWF title. So now we have this going. This is 3 times that they put this over. So this is uh, we cut to another scene outside where Bobby Heenan is outside, and it looks around him like there's a bunch of extras who seem like they were stopped on the street and asked if they wanted to be on TV or something. These people just looked. I mean, they looked like they were two wrestling fans, but that's pretty much about it. The rest were just people, it seemed. Bobby Heenan is dressed as a Hasidic Jew, and he says that he's Uncle Maury Feldman, and he's apparently Rob's uncle. He has tickets on a discount, he mentions, and a bagel, which is also something to keep in mind. Um, He makes a Fiddler on the Roof reference and says uh, there's got to be a way to get onto the roof. Turns out, spoiler, he doesn't get onto the roof. He eventually gets into some sort of like hallway or something, but he does not get onto the roof. After that, we go into an advertisement for All American Wrestling this Sunday in NYC at 12 noon on the USA Network, and Gino Okerlund and Bobby Heenan are advertised. We go to a commercial break, we come back, and we have another advertisement for Monday Night Raw for January 18th and February 1st. The number isn't blurred, so it's 203-352-8692. So this is the Raw before Royal Rumble and maybe the Raw after. So we cut back and it's the same lady that was holding the sign up from earlier, but she's leaving this time and she's leaving the ring. So we don't really get much with her. Uh, but I noticed again after it kind of cuts to commentary, and again they try to put over the uncut, uncooked, and uncensored tagline for Raw. And what's also interesting is when we cut to that shot of the three announcers, there's this can of Sprite that's right next to one of the monitors. And what's also interesting is Macho Man, his ring gear, what he has on, and the Sprite can look exactly the same. They're the same colors. So now we cut to a clip of Kamala as he's getting pushed by his tamer, I forget his name, and Harvey Whippleman. We see Slick comes out to save Kamala, and also he gets a nice pop, which I thought was pretty cool from the crowd. Kamala gets upset, slaps his belly a few times, which I thought was pretty funny. Gives the Ric Flair chops to the tamer who completely eats shit and flies out of the ring. He then goes to chase after Harvey Whippleman on the outside. And then it just cuts right into Damian Demento, who's in the ring and does not have any music. He's just standing in the ring, and it cuts directly right into it. And after we get the shot of Damian Demento, this is our main event, the first ever Raw, Damian Demento versus the Undertaker. So if Raw ever goes away, which I mean it may never, but if it does, then we can they should probably put the Undertaker. So as Damian Demento's in the ring, it cuts directly into the Undertaker, who's already down the walkway and getting onto the stairs. So you get a direct shot of him walking up the steel steps. Bartlett says that Taker should get his hair out of his face, and he has such a pretty face, so I found that pretty funny. I find out in this segment that Rob Bartlett is basically loaned to the WWF by WFAN radio. So I don't know how long he's going to be there, but he's there for the first night, maybe to try to pop the New York crowd, I guess, because that's a New York radio station. Uh, there's a certain point where Paul Bear is holding the urn, and Rob calls it a martini shaker, and the match winds up beginning after that. There's a certain point in the match where Vince says that Taker is always walking tall. And that reminded me of that Vince face where they say Vince McMahon likes big sweaty man. Vince McMahon likes big sweaty man. Which I thought that was funny because I think someone is dancing in front of him and he makes those faces. So one thing I noticed is Taker's in the gimmick where he gets knocked down and rises back up. And he pretty much works a slow, I want to say methodical approach to his ring work during this time. He's got the great gloves. Uh, before he does the tombstone, he signals to the urn and does the thing with his hand. So not something I'm used to seeing, but something I did welcome. So he's in his gimmick where he does all this, and he has a methodical approach to his ring work, a very slow pace. He goes up for old school, and it's not called old school because it's current school at that point. But most of this match is pretty much a squash, with Taker hitting the tombstone for the win. As Taker's music playing, we get an advertisement for a steel cage match between Woody Allen and Mia Farrow. I didn't understand why. I don't know what's happening at the time with Woody Allen or Mia Farrow. I don't even know if they were together. But Vince advertises that there's a steel cage match going on. And that's happening next week. So that is something I am definitely looking forward to. We then go into a commercial break and come back out, and Doink the Clown is ringside with Vince. He's on the show a lot, which is something I noticed. This is the, I think, third time that we see Doink the Clown. One thing I found, I guess, the way the gimmick is, not the gimmick, but the way they're trying to get this rivalry in is Crush has a rivalry with Doink apparently, and he doesn't like the fact that Doink makes kids cry, which is what I got from it. So as Crush is making his way out, because Doink's already out talking to Vince, Doink says if he was out here now, he'd be crying and I'd be the one laughing. But just to let you know, spoiler, that Crush did not cry. But he did get squirted with a squirt gun, which I thought was pretty funny. Doink pulls out a squirt gun and just shoots him with with the squirt gun, the water gun. So I guess he kind of did cry, at least like water. This is pretty much the end of the show. They kind of run around the ring a little bit, and then Crush winds up getting into the ring with Doink outside, and they're looking at each other. And then there's kind of a loud horn sound, and then Crush's music kind of plays, and that's pretty much about it. Nothing else in ring happens after that, and we're kind of just left with that as the uh, closing wrestling segment on the show. But the actual closing segment uh, of the entire show is Bobby Heenan is now in some sort of hallway or inside of the building now. And Sean Mooney says, because I know they're by elevators, and Sean Mooney finally lets him in and says, "You can go in. You can finally go in." But how did he wind up getting in? Which I thought was pretty funny. So he winds up getting in, and Bobby Heenan goes directly to the doors, the elevator doors, and then it fades to black. And as it's fading to black, we see the Titan Sports Inc. logo that comes up. Copyright 1993. So WWF is doing business as Titan Sports, which is, well, I guess also why they called it Titan Towers. So that is pretty much your first episode of Monday Night Raw. It was okay. Uh, three squash matches and a regular match. So if you're watching this match, you're pretty much only watching for the Razor promo. If you're a big Razor fan, you're watching the match between Max Moon. That's a very competent match. The rest are just squashes. Beverly Brothers are there, but they're gone at this point. Steiners are still there. Um, I think their run in the WWF isn't that long. I don't know when. We'll see what winds up happening. You do get Taker in the main event, and Taker becomes a staple. The first match is Yoko versus Koko. So that's I guess, a good trivia. And it's basically a show to kind of guide you into the pay-per-views. At this point, I'm not sure how many pay-per-views they're doing per year, but this is prior to In Your Houses, so I think it's pay-per-views, the introduction of Raw, and then house shows, and then whatever spot stuffs, like they said for Mania. But those are just pre-taped matches, so I'm assuming they pre-taped it at some point or during a house show. But there you pretty much go. You have your first episode of Monday Night